Hi, welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Karisa Delay.
And I'm author Jaime Vendera, and we have a very special guest with us today,
Yes, we
Michael
have Michael
C.
C. Bland.
Yep.
Would you like to introduce yourself, sir, even though I just said your name?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me on here. Michael C. Bland. I am the author of The Price of Trilogy, the first two that came out. So the third is coming out in April, and I've been lucky enough to, between the two of them, win 13 awards so far.
Wow.
And thank you. And the first one was reached the Amazon top 10. So
Nice.
Wow.
Nice job. That's
thank you.
awesome.
Thank
Listen,
you.
your covers are really cool. And Jamie knows this. I'm very particular about consistency with covers.
Mhm.
So I
Me too.
like that your covers are aligned right and they're consistent about like the imaging that's around, the color schemes. Even when I recently took an author to the bookstore, I'm like, look, see this? This doesn't match in the series. So I'm going to think these are two books and then an extra one.
Mhm.
So I like that your books are flowing like that. So thank you
Thank you.
for my
Well,
mental state.
I had the same artist do all three. Dorothy Mason. She was fantastic.
Nice. And it's not, it's almost like a strained when you find your cover artist. It just fits.
Absolutely. The same with on the Audible. The same vocal actor did the first two, and he's going to do the third as well. So consistency there as well. I know that's
Speaking
huge.
of Audible, I've not ever listened to a book on Audible until yours. Yours was
Really?
the first, yes. So I've been busy, but I like to get an idea of the author's work before they come on.
Mhm.
So I'll usually order the book or I'll read on Kindle or whatever. But yours had the Audible option. I'm like, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's listen because I wanted to hear the voice and how that flowed. Very nice. I very much liked the idea I could listen as I was folding clothes or taking a bath or whatever I was doing. It was very nice to just have that there.
Great, fantastic. Well, actually, my best friend told me that he would not read my books, but if I ever got it on Audible, he would listen. And yeah, so finally I
Yeah,
was
I've
like,
had people say that. And so I think my next book I'm going to do that with. So I may have to pick your brain in the future and say, hey, what's your thoughts and how did you start and whatever. We'll go maybe down that route down the road. When we
absolutely.
talk about Audible, we may bring you back on and you say, hey, tell our authors, our writers what you went through to get that point. So we'll just
More
talk.
than happy to. Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect.
Did your best friend say, wow, I know this is fiction, but this is kind of scary because it could really happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. And the thing is, he also he has two daughters, and the
Oh,
main character of the book has two daughters.
yeah.
So that resonated with him even more because he could see himself as a father. The worry and what do you do when you have this world that they can track you, they can follow you, they can manipulate you. And
Wait, you mean today? Because I
Yeah.
know this is like 25 years in the future.
Yeah.
So I
So,
feel like a lot of it resonated with current events.
I try to make it extremely relatable. I try to make it so you as the reader are just you're pulled into the world and you can relate to it and try to make it as realistic. I did a ton of research with the technology as well because I didn't want it like so far fetched that you're like, okay, I couldn't relate to it.
I know we're kind of getting ahead. So, like, the main character is Dray Quintero, I'm assuming, and then his
Yes.
daughter Raven. Can you kind of give us an overview? I know you can't really complete it because the third book comes out in a few months,
Right.
and a lot of people are waiting, and we don't want to spoil that for them. But
Right.
kind of what is the premise so far?
So
what's
the
that?
premise is it's set in the near future where technology has gotten so integrated in our lives, even more so than now, if you can imagine, that no crime goes unsolved anymore because they can track you, they can monitor you in even greater degree than they can now. And in that world, Dre, his 19-year-old daughter, commits a crime. He covers it up to save her life, and that pulls him into this world, one that he never really knew existed. And he finds out that actually his own technology, which was supposed to help protect everybody, was supposed to help protect his daughters and make the world better, that is actually being used to help manipulate and control everyone. So then he is forced to decide, is he going to help try to fix what he inadvertently helped create, or does he just try to keep his daughter safe? But how can you really keep your daughter safe when you have this kind of world and you have this kind of technology that can be used against you? And then on top of that, you have where in my world, everyone has a small implant. It's, like Google Glass on
Yep.
steroids, and where you can access the internet, you can watch movies, you can do all these things just through the technology in your eyes and the small implant. However, what people don't realize is that's also being used to control them. If I can control what you see, I can control what you think.
Control what you
And
do.
that's being used also against them. And so he's pulled into this world. And then in the second book, it's even more. Now he is part of this fight to try to defeat the bad guys and the ones that are trying to continue to control everyone and stay in power. And then the third is win or broke. It's all or nothing. It's the last ditch effort to try to survive.
So what was there, like a dream? What has inspired this to come to a book series? What brought you to this point?
So what's weird is when I was living in Chicago and I was on the L one day. I love taking the L all the time. And that particular day, every single person in the car was on their phone. It was a packed car, every single one just on their phone. I'm like, I could just start taking all my clothes off and no one would have any idea. No one would have any, not that anyone wanted to see it. But however, at the same time that I look at the ceiling, there are 3 video cameras embedded. So while no one is watching, someone could always be watching.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that started in my weird brain of, then if someone's always watching, well, first how would you get away with anything, right? But then it's like, well, but no, what if instead you have, that you have people that you care about that they're in trouble? What do you do then? And that's what started the story.
Yeah, this needs to be a movie. I mean, I'm sure you can't say anything yet, but if you haven't been approached yet, I'm shocked, because this is like really cool. And any father would do that for, somebody. I mean, when you think about it, I know people, I have a friend and her son got into some trouble, and rightly so, but it's still your child. Mm-hmm. And you're going to do everything you can to save them from whatever, comes afterwards.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it goes with that one against the multitude. Do you save the multitude by keeping the system in to even though it's controlling? Before he finds out that it's controlling or whatever, you're like, do I save everybody from all the future crimes, or do I save my daughter, save the one or the multitude?
Absolutely. And it was that tension that drove that drives him throughout the series.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that we're talking about this technology and you being on the L and seeing people on their phones, because without us pushing it, we didn't push it. The narrative of being on your phones too much, our children became self-aware that they were on their phones too much. We're talking about this morning before leaving for school that the school systems are thinking about taking phones in the beginning of classes and getting them back at the end of class. And I think one of their teachers already does this in one of the classes. And one of our girls said, yeah, these 2 girls are like, I can't wait to be back on my phone. And they're like, what do you need to be on your phone for? Our girls have become somewhat self-aware that I'm on my phone too much, deleting social media. Yeah. And one of our youngest, she's 15, and she's like, doesn't have social media. She's like, I deleted it all. I'm on it too much. I find myself drawn to it. I don't want to do it. I deleted TikTok, even though before it was going to be officially deleted, I had already deleted it. And then I only use like Instagram and Facebook for the podcast to push things, but I'm not always, I guess, drawn to other people's stuff other than like maybe cat videos. But I mean, that's what I'm like, new cat videos, or
I'll start sending you all the ones I send my wife.
See, I never even went on TikTok. Well, with all the research I've been doing, I got too paranoid. I'm like, I'm just not even gonna.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just a side note there, because that was the thing with our girls. I think with your books, this is a big eye opener for people, because our daughters were like, I don't know why they're deleting it. I mean, like, what are they going to do with my information? I'm a teenager. What are they going to do? I'm like, it has nothing to do with you, but by association, your dad's in the military. There's all ways of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to find the person you're looking for. You may not be the droids that they're looking for, but there may be someone they're looking for in this needle in the haystack that I got you. I got this one, and now I have a connection to that person that maybe works in the Pentagon or this or that. But it's always take this person's information to get into another person's information. They don't quite grasp that. So maybe when you were going down the research mode, did you see how that works? Can you kind of give us a little bit of your research on that?
Well, I full disclosure, it's been a few years since I did the research for starting the first book. But yes, there's definitely the way that they can track the massive amounts of data. A lot of things, like kind of to your kids' points about, well, why would anyone care? You're a small part of a greater group, and it's social engineering and social manipulation. And there are people that their jobs, all they've done for years, is learn how we as a species processes information, reacts to information. That is what they, and everything from political to when you go into a Macy's department store, they have it laid out a specific way, and they know how you're going to act and react. And that's why the impulse purchases, that's not by accident. They are doing it to set up their products in a way that it's such a greater chance that you are actually going to buy. A lot of times, and my wife especially, she'll go in somewhere and think that, I'm not going to buy anything, and she comes home with
I only need one thing.
We all do, right? Yeah, exactly. Only do one thing. There are people that's their job. Now, that's just for a department store. What do you think of a foreign power that wants to have us as a country act and react in a certain way? Remember, for a while, it was, I'll bet you it's because of manipulation over time. What's subtle, what's this and that, and they're actually not that bad of a guy. It's also interesting to me is with TikTok as this quick side thing. If instead if it had been a Russian controlled app, I think people's attitude would be a lot more different than a Chinese app, because it is controlled by a foreign power.
Okay, let's talk about your characters.
Yes.
Inspiration. You talk about the two daughters. Did you say you have two daughters, or your friend has two daughters?
My friend has two daughters.
Okay, so was that where you kind of inspired to have the father figure and the two daughters?
Yeah, to a degree, as well as I have a niece who's 5, and she wraps me around her little finger, and so she was definitely also a big inspiration. But my biggest inspiration really was Dray, the main character, and because while I was not an engineer, both of my grandfathers were engineers. They're both brilliant. My mother's father was a chemical engineer who knew 5 languages.
That's amazing.
And knew Italian so well. When he would go to Italy, he would pretend not to know the language because he was listening for the right dialects. Because if you used the wrong dialect back then, you may not live the next day.
Right.
Yeah, right. And then my father's father was a metallurgical engineer. I know I mispronounced that. With metal, was one of the top experts on the planet back in the day. And after Pearl Harbor, they both tried to enlist. Well, when the military saw what their backgrounds were, they said, "You're too valuable." So my mother's father ended up being a supervisor at a bomb-making factory in Texas during the war.
Wow.
And my father's father ended up helping build battleships in the Brooklyn Naval Yard. So I definitely wanted to, emulate them, and they inspired me. And so that's why I had Dray as an engineer, and a lot of his skills and mentality and that kind of stuff I took from them.
And it's very cool because they were part of an era of engineering during more battleships and bombs, and you are in a kind of a war technology. So it's kind of like a different type of war field. It's a different type of battleground that you're writing these stories on. Even though it's not technically what they did, it's kind of encompassing their mentality.
I do have a side question. So you said you were sitting on there, and everybody's looking at their phones. You see the 3 videos. Price of Safety, first book, correct?
Yes.
That came out in 2020.
Yes.
So what year was it that you noticed this and you started writing this book?
2017.
Okay.
Okay.
My first book took 4 years. And I was like, wow, because I'm thinking, looking back, I guess people were staring at their phones probably since 2012 or 2010. So I was like, wow, that seems like today, but I guess we have been doing that for quite a while.
We've been doing it, unfortunately, for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we've already developed the neck challenges and all that stuff. But that's already been a thing. We're already starting to evolve into different shapes.
And it's just going to keep going too.
Yeah.
So I want to throw in one of these improv questions here. So if you could sit down and interview or have dinner with one of your characters in your book, who would that be and why?
Oh, that's a great. The one that jumps to mind is Talia. She's the 12-year-old. She And while, yeah, she's 12 years old, but she is a spitfire. She leaps off the page. She is her own person, and extremely smart, and a hacker, to the point she kind of made up part of her own language, so she speaks a little differently because her brain works so fast. And she's rebellious. So that was the most fun to write. She would be great to actually sit down, if she was real, and have a conversation with her. And I'm sure I would probably learn a lot and have a blast.
So did you write prior to this? Like, did you have like some writing experience prior to these books?
Yes, yes. However, I wasn't as good. And the thing is, look, writing is a craft, right? Everyone goes, "Oh, I can write," and of course, yes, we all write almost all the time, whether it's emails or whatever it might be. But to actually write a cohesive story with characters and a world, and that that someone can just pick up and be pulled into your world, that's extremely difficult. And it's taken me many, many years. I've actually written for quite a while, but it wasn't until I started taking classes at the University of Iowa's summer writing workshops that I became serious, became better, and really elevated my writing. And like any craft, the more education, more experience, more actual work that you're putting into it, the better that you become. So that was definitely one aspect of my writing. And then the other big aspect was, a gentleman by the name of Robert Kerbeck. He used to be a professional actor, actually. Quick random aside thing. He was the one that killed off George Clooney on the show Sisters so that George Clooney could go on ER and become George Clooney.
I didn't know George Clooney prior to ER.
He did have a life prior to ER. But,
he did. He was in that comedy, The
Facts of Life. Yes, he did that for a little bit. Yeah.
Facts of Life back in the day?
Oh yeah, Google it. He looks so
okay. Well, so I probably watched him and didn't put the name, because I'm not really good with actors and their real names on off screen. Other than that, I'm like, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah. So Robert Kerbeck, he's also a writer, and so we would give each other's chapters and to edit them. And I'll be honest, the first book that I had written before going to the University of Iowa Summer Writers Workshop, he edited that, and it was brutal. He would come back with absolute entire pages crossed out, and you're like, I sweated over these words, and he's like, no, just get rid of all of this. And
I've been there.
Brutal. Yeah, it's brutal.
That's deep.
Yeah, definitely have some bourbon after each phone call. But
yeah, it hurts because like these are your children, and like your first couple of books, you're like, how dare you? I spent an hour on that paragraph. So yes, we both been there. I'm sure you felt that way after Rich. We have an editor named Rich Dalglish, and one of my books, he took out
25,000.
Yeah, 20-something thousand words. I wanted to kill this dude, and then I didn't miss it. Then I read it, and there was nothing missing. It was just, I was just all over the place and wordy and saying this, but and that's when I realized you got to separate. You can't be married to every word you write.
Right, exactly. And you sit there and does the book, kind of like what you're saying, does the book continue to make sense without those words?
Right.
As the story still work? Which if that's the case, then they're gone.
Okay, so on your website earlier, and I say this all the time, I was hugely ADHD, so I can't remember. I saw something about lawyers don't lie or something. Was that a book?
Lawyers Can't Fly.
Lawyers Can't Fly.
That was the book that he was the one that he was editing.
Why don't I see those on Amazon?
Because that one was not published.
Okay.
But I did get an opportunity to pitch the story to Columbia Pictures.
Oh, yes, I do remember reading that on your website.
Yes, actually, and it was funny. My sister lives in Columbus, Ohio, and she had gotten.
I teach there. Yep.
You teach there. Small world. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. She. So there was this wizard. Was it? Anyway, it's like a fan expo, kind of thing, and they were having this contest, Columbia Pictures. You could submit a story idea because they're seeing if fans hey, there might be a budding next author at one of these things, because of course like for myself, I'm a sci-fi writer and I love sci-fi and I go to those things. So I had at the time this Lawyers Can't Fly story idea, which is this humorous take on superheroes. And basically, they get tired of getting sued every time they save the planet and cause all this property damage. And so he doesn't want to become their lawyer because they're not really taken seriously. And so he gets pulled into this world and it turns everything upside down. He ends up being the one to help save them. So that's what the basic story was about. And so I put this thing on, I submitted the application, not thinking anything of it. And then a week later, I got this email, hey, you've been selected to pitch your story idea. And so I called her. I'm like, so I'm flying in town next week for this thing. And she's like, I was kind of joking. I can't believe you actually submitted for this. and so I went in and there are only 16 people that were selected to be able to pitch. And I went in there in this 5-minute pitch and, talk about adrenaline rush. I almost don't remember what I really even, said during those, 5 minutes to these two nice women that were in there. But they laughed when I said jokes and they, seemed, touched at the emotional parts of the story. And then a week later, they asked for the entire manuscript.
That's awesome.
It was great.
And
then nothing. Yeah. I haven't heard a thing since.
When was that, though?
That was, I want to say 2016.
Really?
Yeah. So it's in some drawer over in Columbia Pictures. So
yeah.
Well, we'll see if anything around.
That's entertainment. I'm a vocal coach, and I won't even mention any names. I will get the strangest phone calls or emails from well-known artists, and then crickets. Or 3 years later they call, I need you now. Can you do a lesson tomorrow night? It's the craziest thing. So you may be 20, 50. You're like, hey, we want to publish it. We want to turn this into a movie. You're like, that's been 30 something
years. A long time, but sure. Yeah, you never know. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. My phone number hasn't changed, so maybe someday.
Mine hasn't either since I got a cell phone back in I don't know, when cell phones became a real thing. I got one, and I remember I've had the same phone number. I even changed carriers and kept the same number. That way, anybody I've lost in my past can find me.
Yes.
I just know your number by Karisa.
You're funny.
If I don't have, I would not. I can't get a hold of it if I lose it. So.
I'm sure you can find me. All right, in your book series.
Yes.
When you I just lost my thing. When you were writing this, something that I like for authors when they come on is to share with our listeners who might also be aspiring writers or current writers, what were your struggles and how did you overcome them?
That's a good question. One of the biggest struggles is kind of where to take the story. I had the premise. Mm-hmm. I had some of the characters. I wasn't sure at first where I was going with the story. I kind of I knew the very end, kind of where I wanted us generally where to go. Yeah. But the analogy I've kind of used is almost like I was standing in a fog and where you can go one of, any different direction and you'll end up in a different location. And so I had to plan out the story and kind of, Jamie, what you're talking about, there were some aspects that I had to throw away because another challenge with it was the logic of my world. If we have it where you can almost instantaneously communicate with everyone else, it can't be a story of, and I don't like them anyway, of, oh, well, gee, if they had only had a cell phone to call Bobby, then, gee, this would have all been fixed, kind of thing, right? So it definitely couldn't be any of those types of situations. I don't like characters that are dumb. If they just, thought it through for 5 seconds, they would. And I'm not saying that Dray does everything in the smartest way, but every intention at the time made sense of what he was doing.
You want it to be a logical, natural type flow, not oh yeah, he just knows everything.
Yeah, exactly. Or also or suddenly this door opened out of nowhere and in come the cavalry.
Right.
Those are horrible stories.
Yeah. And I get that because recently my husband and I watched we were sitting down and lunch. He comes home on lunch. Did I tell you about this, Jamie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We were watching. He's like, "You want to watch something?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's find a limited series." Because he was thinking maybe watch an hour movie or something. I'm like, "Let's watch one of those limited series on Netflix." Because I like those. I know I'm not committed to waiting for next season. Mm-hmm. Something I could just a long 8-hour thing.
Agreed.
Well, I found this one. Not saying the name of it, but please, I will tell you later not to watch it because it was exactly what you said. None of it made sense. And you're like, did AI? I literally looked it up because my husband mentioned it. Did AI write this? Because it was so. You're like,
predictable.
it wasn't believable. Like it was like not even drawing you in. And the only reason we watched it was because we got into like so many episodes. And we're like, let's see how it pans out.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not good. There were pauses in places there shouldn't have been. There were things that didn't make sense. The character, like if you were in this situation as this character, you would not react this way. No one would react this way. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I'm with you on that. Like when you're writing your characters, and I'm with that with the book I'm writing now. I'm like, why would this character, this happen to this character, and why would this character react this way? Right. What are you telling me ahead of time?
Right.
Yeah.
So
when you do that, do you organize like a layout, do you have a mapping system on your wall, like a murder board, or do you have like a series of notes that you keep in like Excel or something like that? How do you organize your thoughts of your characters and what they're going to be doing and how they should be reacting?
Word. I have Word documents. The outline for, well, definitely for the third book, that was about 150 pages.
Oh wow.
Of notes, and that was it organized, and each one was over 100 pages. And the notes app on my phone is I use it all the time. And if anyone ever like pulled it up, they would think I was either insane, I was criminal, I was drinking, or maybe a combination. Just because some of it's random stuff. So all the above, right? Because it's all kinds of just notes that if I've discovered if I don't write it down, I'll never remember it again, right? So definitely write them down. And some notes are brilliant later when I read it. Others I'm like, why did I think that was interesting? Why did I even write it? That kind of thing.
So is that how you overcome that challenge of keeping things straight?
Yes. Is pull the note. I use my phone. Notes is probably my number one app. Actually, on my phone.
Same.
Yeah, we use that a lot with the podcast to go back and forth. I'll create notes separate, then draw them into the notes app, share them with Jaime, and then we can kind of add to or whatever and correspond that way. It makes it so much easier.
Right, and one of the things for those listeners who are writers, there is no right way. There's no wrong way. It's what works best for you. Everyone's brain's a little different. What works best for me, someone else might think that they would rather jump off a cliff than try it that way because it's horrible for them. Others, Robert, he writes by the seat of his pants and then goes back and changes and edits. And man, especially when it comes to trying to edit, he was throwing me this latest book, and like 8-9 chapters through, he's like, oh, by the way, I changed the beginning. There's this other character, but just read this and you'll read it back later. And I'm like sitting there going, I don't even know.
When you're done.
Right. Yeah. And give me some good notes. I'm like, I love you, man, but I'm just, I did what I could.
That's what Jaime is. He's like, I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm just going to write.
Yeah. I'm like, if I were in the fog, I don't fight my way to clear the fog. I just look around till the path opens up, and then that's the way I go. But I got to say, I literally, I won't have the third book. I mean no disrespect to anyone now, past or in the future that we interview. I'm so busy that I don't read like I used to. But I did have to buy your books because what's driving me nuts is the fact that Raven committed a crime, and he's covering it up. But if she did, and they have the implant, and they can see everything in that minute, how did he do that? I gotta know. It's because I'm like, no, because they already know. So there's something in the technology.
You're like, I need to know.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is okay. I can dig this.
And this is daughter being controlled, because obviously they can control her to make her commit the crime, but she didn't actually commit the crime, maybe. And then maybe they're watching.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, maybe they're waiting to see his reaction to see how is he going to come forward.
I just thought she was a spiteful teenager. I ran over my boyfriend.
What? Well, and it's also, is she upfront with her father when she first says what happened and why? To find
There's so many spider webs this can take you on.
Oh yeah, that's why at first I'm like, I need to collect my thoughts and figure what story I want this to be.
Yeah. See, that's where I would need a murder board. I would literally have like my wall covered and like, okay, this one is connected to that one. And
it's a little red strings.
Because I think if I was reading in a linear outline on 150 pages of my word, I would be like, I need to see this. I need to visualize this. I need to say, okay, oh, nope, they're there. Oh, no, they're over here. So,
well, what I did do is I printed all of those pages.
Okay.
and then trying to shift them around and mark here to add
Oh,
that
that's
for
cool.
this. Oh yeah, which my family just avoids me when I'm doing this stuff because they're just like,
You just need a big board like that's pretty on one side, so when you're not working on it, you flip it around like it looks like a beautiful painting. You flip it like, oh, there's my board.
I like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you. My wife's like, "What's this big board you just ordered?" Well,
Sweetie, what kind of painting do you want on the front?
there
And then
you
we
go.
just, and it's on like a swivel where you can just, it's like the TVs that look like artwork. You just flip it when you're using
I
it, and
like
then you
that.
flip it back. No one will know.
See,
You'll
I
never
like
know.
that. Secrets.
I'm gonna start marketing that. I'm gonna go on Shark Tank for that.
There you go.
Murder boards.
Yes. Of course, there'll be all starving writers who will be your people
Yeah.
buying it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It has to be. I mean, and we've talked about this multiple times with several authors. We have talked about this just in general. You have to decide if you're writing for the money and fame, or if you're writing because you enjoy telling the story.
Mm.
There is a difference that drives you. And we just had an episode that we recorded on Monday with two other podcasters from Colorado, and we talked about hustle culture. And it was a great episode. And this is something that with authors, you have to decide, am I going to hustle just to put out a product, or am I going to take and hone in on my craft and become diligent with my craft versus pressure to put out just something?
Yeah,
Right.
because if you can remember, like, what was it, 08, maybe 2010, 11, something like that, all of a sudden, Kindle, I mean, there was 100,000 books on Kindle one day, and the next day there was 14 million or something ridiculous, and everybody was oh, I got to make a dime, let me spit out a 20-page book and, charge $5.99 for it and do a whole series, and poor quality,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh.
Which I
You know-
can appreciate that Michael's books are like 300 pages plus.
Yeah.
I love that. I love a thicker book. I know,
And-
and I'm not saying anything against Jamie's 20 pages. I'm
No,
saying
I don't write. They're at least 40. No, I write movie and TV. If I'm writing fiction, it's movie or TV books. So like I do quick reads, like 100 pages. But if it's a TV book, which is like 13 chapters, 13 episodes, it's around 300 pages.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate a good book.
No, I definitely try to write the books because I know, because doing all the technology, right, that I'm fighting everyone's attention, and Jamie, like you're saying, the amount of time that you have, and Karisa, with Joe, the other things where you're doing the Audible book is, I know I'm fighting, internet and social media and, TV, we can stream so much, all that stuff that I try to grab your attention and keep it, because if you put my book down, probably not going to put it back up.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yours is like a page turner for sure. From what I mean, even though I'm listening to it, it's definitely one of those ones you want to just keep going and listening. So I would have to agree on that one.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Jamie, thank you for getting all three. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it
you
might
keep
take me
reading.
3 more months to.
No, that's
get
fine.
started.
Yeah. Well, let me know what you think about the book. Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So when you were building your world, so this is 25 years in the future.
Mhm.
And so you were building this in like essentially 2017, correct?
Right.
So 25 years futuristically, what kind of things did you change scenery wise that you may have kind of had to like push the narrative of what we are currently, or did you leave a lot of it very similar to now?
I kept a lot of it very similar for
Okay.
2 reasons. One, instead of creating an absolute world from scratch, as well as it's only, at the time, it was 30 years. So 2017, so it's
Right.
2047. So at 30 years, we're not going to knock down a whole bunch of buildings and wipe out everything.
Might just
I mean, LA right now, God,
Right.
what's happening there, that will change. But the major cities, what we have will be the same. But like, for example, Denver at one point, so there's Denver, there's Colorado Springs. They are continuing to kind of meld. Well, in 25, 30 years, I was thinking that basically it's going to become one huge combined city, massive city. And so I was trying to envision what's the world going to be like in another 25, 30 years. Where are we going to grow? Where are we going to have fewer people? That kind of thing. And while that wasn't all in my book, it was part of my planning, the world building that I had on the side. I did create these buildings in San Francisco. That's where part of the first book is, that don't exist right now. These H-style buildings, these huge buildings with this like platform, 3/4 of the way up, and it's kind of like this little mini. Yeah, well, it was actually, there's like a restaurant there, and there's a little park and that kind of stuff. So kind of urban living, but you got to have this private kind of space. That was kind of at the biggest stretch that I think that I did. The rest was all within the technology itself.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
could
and I
see
don't think
buildings like that being like
oh, I
realistic.
definitely, yeah, I
Oh,
can
Yeah,
kind
totally
of
see
cool.
that. I
yeah,
see that a
Yeah.
lot of the sci-fi futuristic stuff where it's like there's the lower city and then there's the above stuff that's looking, down on it. It's a completely different world above there.
Right.
Because I don't know the law. Maybe you research this, but like airspace, because is airspace rentable or viable? Because you have your land that you own, but do you own the airspace to a certain extent above you? No,
Yeah.
right?
Right. I don't believe so. At least I didn't run across anything. Now I didn't also research every state. I'll be honest, but yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't see anything that would preclude that from doing that. That's also why high rises they'll try to build as high as economically feasible
Yeah.
and
I just wonder how that
viable.
like are they do they have to own a certain allotment into the air when they're building? I'm sure obviously all that has to be approved, but like even with drones, they can only fly within a certain space, and then they have to have approval whether they can spy not spy well spy, but whether they can fly within a local area or whether they can expand out and have different geographical things, because I did learn that from a photographer who uses drones, that he had to have certain licensing to fly in different locations and different heights.
Right. Yeah. See, drones are something that 20 years ago we didn't really worry about or think about, and now it's become extremely prevalent. And that I think is still just kind of like a new technology that haven't really fully developed and implemented, and they actually play a big part within my book, from very tiny to large, that you can jump in and be taken around in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that's why I think that your books are going to be a great. I don't know why we do this as humans, but we read things that we can relate to and almost scare us. You know,
Hmm.
we'll watch movies with pandemics. We'll watch movies with like serial killers. Well, all these things we're like these things could happen, but we're like I got to watch. I've got to read.
Well, you're right, and definitely didn't write it to try to scare anybody, but in a way though, it was to kind of be a harbinger of, look, technology is a tool. It can be used for good or for ill, and I love technology and the wonders
Mhm.
that can create. But we also need to be aware, and to go back to talking about TikTok and social media and social engineering. We have to be aware of what this technology can do and to be cognizant of the risks.
Mhm.
Quantum computing, that is something that Google is working on right now, or at least the lead. There are others that are doing it.
All
Um,
made possible by Mandelbrot.
right? Yeah, right. And the technology is fascinating. It can be extremely helpful. Can help mankind in many many ways, but maybe not always. It's a tool. If you use it for ways that aren't necessarily for the common good, but maybe just for your own need, or to try to take out an enemy or something like that, guess what? It's going to do what you ask it to do,
But do you think that
causes issues.
in a sense happens with everything, that's kind of what gives us such a large toolbox to write and kind of manipulate story wise, is because anything can be made bad.
Right.
um, you know just in general, like I feel we hear about religion being a bad thing, but like it's like it
Mhm.
can be a good thing. Prescription drugs can be a good thing, but I think they can also be a bad thing because we're not using them in the proper way.
Right.
um, I know vaccines and anti-vaccine, I could see both sides. You know, living off the earth versus like not having technology, I can see both sides. Like there's a good and bad with everything, I feel like.
Completely agree. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, as authors, that we can pull from any of that stuff.
Mhm.
And I was telling Jamie prior to you getting on here, I have this new fiction book idea, and when I'm finished writing Canvas, I'm going to take and spin this one. And I literally decided this idea yesterday, having lunch with my husband, and it was something good, but I saw the negative side of it, that you could make this into something extremely negative. And I mean, it would be helping humanity. It would be like a huge plus, but in the back end, it's super, super devious and evil.
See,
So we can do
those are
that.
great. That's a great idea. Is having a story like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
and with mine, yes, technology is used for to manipulate and trick people and everything else, but it's also one of the only ways that Dray and the people he's with have any fighting chance
Mhm.
to survive and
Well,
maybe
yeah,
defeat the
sometimes you have
bad
to
guy.
fight with the tools that you're fighting against.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what a dilemma. You created something you thought was for the good,
Hmm.
and now you got to fight for what is right because
Mhm.
it has been used in a completely different way than what you envisioned for the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple more improv questions,
Sure.
and then I'll let you kind of have your last little mantra to our listeners and to those about you. But if you who or not if who is your author that you always like reading, and if that person is the same person, do you write like that person, or is there some other author you write like?
Um, I think the two others that kind of come to mind. One is Pierce Brown,
Hmm.
who does the Red Rising series.
Oh, okay.
Love his voice. He has pick up any of his books, and he has a very distinct voice with that series, which I,
Hmm.
I absolutely love. Um, and the one that I really kind of emulate is Michael Crichton, because I thought he did an excellent job of taking something in the real world and kind of Carissa, exactly what you're saying about it can be used for good or be used, for not so good.
Yeah.
And the one, of course, he's most known for is Jurassic Park, but that is taking DNA and cloning, basically, using kind of cloning technology to create dinosaurs. And then what is all the bad stuff that triggers?
Hmm.
As well as Prey and Andromeda Strain and all these others that they're elements of things that are real or are being developed, and then creating a story around it.
Hmm.
And that's what I really been inspired by, is to try to do that kind of writing, that kind of approach. Trust me, I love the Star Wars story. You give me a lightsaber, I'll be a happy man, right? But also, that's not happening. I'm not going to have a lightsaber, and I probably shouldn't be given one,
Well,
even if they
duh,
were real.
because this happened a long time ago. This isn't
Yeah,
futuristic.
that's
Star
true.
Wars was a long, long time ago.
That is true. In a different galaxy. That's true. I forget that part. So, but
Jeez, get with like the.
man, I get so excited when I think about Star Wars.
Sorry, a little
But but I want it relatable, right? I want these stories relatable, and I want them to grab readers and exactly kind of what you were saying about this could really happen. And then
It's
what
happening.
would
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
in that kind of? To me, those are some of the most interesting stories, because I can really see myself in it, and I get sucked in, and then I forget to go to sleep, and it's 4 a.m, and I just keep reading.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
but that's a good book though.
Yeah.
When my husband and I first started dating, we had been friends for like a year, and then we started dating. And he was getting ready to go see his brother, who was graduating from the Air Force uh, boot camp or whatever.
Okay.
So prior to that, I liked Dan Brown, and I was reading the Da Vinci Code. So that
Okay.
was kind of prevalent at the time, and I was reading it. And my husband was over, and he's like, "Can you just put the book down?" I'm like, "No, I can't. I literally can't stop reading." I read the book in like a day and a half, because when I get a book, I just want to finish it. And
Yeah.
like the Twilight series, I know people don't like Twilight, whatever. Honestly, screw you, because I like Tiffany Miner. I'm just gonna say it. I like her book. I like the innovation. I don't care if people don't like diamond vampires, whatever. But the point is, when I find a good book, I will read.
Mhm.
I read that entire series in a week. So with that mentality, my husband, when he went to go see his brother, I sent the book with him, and then he's on the plane, and he's like, "I see why you can't put this down." And the next thing you know, he's wanting to read everything else that Dan Brown had, and I had all of the other books. So it's kind
Oh,
of like
nice.
when you have something that the voice connects with you
Yes.
as an author. And I don't think, and I tell people when they're like, "Oh, what books have you written?" And I don't know if you do this. You can maybe answer this, both of you. When someone's like, "What are your books about?" And you're like, "Hey, this may not be for you. Not everybody's going to like my book."
Hmm.
I always preface that. I'm like, I'm not going to be offended if you don't like my storyline. But there are readers that are like, "I just couldn't put this down. I love this." And those are the ones you're like, "Oh, that keeps me writing."
Well, it's just like with music. I mean, everybody has certain tastes, but to your point, I love Terry Brooks' The Sword of Shannara series,
Hmm.
and I swear every other chapter he's talking about, and the elves and this stopped, and they had meats and cheeses and bread. I will get into a book, and he's like writes 300 to 700 page books, and I will have those little cheese squares. I'll have me some beef jerky, and I'll have like ginger ale or something. I have to be eating,
That's
and what it's
fantastic.
just, and
I
I'll do
love
this
that.
for hours and hours.
So, like a method actor,
So,
you're a method reader.
I'm a
I
method
love
eater
that.
as I read. Yes.
Method reader. He's like, I
Oh,
gotta be in the
that's
story.
fantastic.
Give me my mule. Give me my plan.
Here you go, chapter. Man, I was already full. Darn it, I have to eat more because of this next chapter.
I'm gonna have to get me some Google glasses for when I read your book, and have to do
Okay.
it.
Yes. Yeah, actually, now Meta has the thing with Ray-Ban. I saw.
Yeah, I
those,
just saw that.
hmm
So
I love the idea of that, though. I love the idea of it. I don't like the idea of where it could take you, but I do love the idea of it, because if you're sitting somewhere, you could literally be reading a book.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, I mean, I feel like I love the idea of accessible technology. But again, like your book warns us, what
Yep.
are the side effects?
Right, exactly. They're lens implants because cataract surgery and pulling your lens out that's been around for decades,
Yeah,
and
the
instead
LASIK
you
stuff.
get put in a new lens that has this clear computer screen. So exactly to your point, you can be reading a book, you can watch a show, you can do all this stuff without lifting a finger, really.
Yeah.
Yep, and that
Well,
will
and
be the
this,
future. I mean, look at like the Oculus 3. I just got my mom one, so she can
Yeah.
do exercise and watch the Oculus, and she's like, "Oh, this is so cool." So my grandson
Something
has
that
one.
Jamie and I one time we said, wouldn't it be cool if you could somehow put an implant in that rewinds what you just thought or saw?
Oh, I need that every day.
Oh,
Like, oh man, what was I just thinking? Let me rewind.
Jamie, you just said this to me. No, I didn't. Oh, yeah, I did.
that could be good or it could be really bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I'm married to be really bad. I told you.
Yeah.
Play. Yes. So, question:
Yes.
what would you like to share with our listeners? More like kind of like summary of what you want to share about your book and your upcoming book.
So the price of Trilogy is this fast-paced, gripping story that has a lot of heart to it, which I think surprises some people because a main character, it's all about protecting someone that you care about. How do you protect people that you love in this world where technology can follow you, track you, manipulate you? How
Distract
do you
you.
do that? And that's the big central part. That's the biggest theme within the story itself is this guy who is trying to protect the people that he cares about. And this wonderful, crazy epic goes across the country. And in the third book, it's where he has that choice again of he was going to try to protect his kids, and then he is faced with this decision. And if he's going to actually try to fight, the problem is he's tried to fight, he's tried to run. Neither's worked. So what he's going to have to do is something completely different.
Option C.
And that's the third book.
I love that because we have an author that is in the editing phase, and she may come on to the Vendera group. And when she sat down with me and talked to me, because she's a new writer, she's like telling me this full world, all these stories. And she's telling me, and she's like, and I think I'm going to have them do this, or I'm going to have them do that. So the more the story resonated, I'm like, text her, and I said, hey, you've talked about option A, and you've talked about option B. I said, what about option C? Because I think A and B are what the reader's going to expect. But that C is what they don't expect. You got to come up with a third that they don't see coming because you're taking them down. And I love stories like that. I love stories that I feel like, and it's kind of like The Illusionist versus The Prestige. One kind of just tells you exactly what the story is going to be. That's The Prestige. The Illusionist leads you and you're just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So it's kind of like you have these two different ABs, but third book is option C.
Right. And what I did not want to do is repeat myself because that's not interesting for me to write, let alone for someone to read. And so it's one large story, but it is, because directly to your point, the readers by the third book, they know the characters, they know the bad guys, they know the good guys. And, I want to surprise them, but it also makes sense.
Yeah. But do you, I know we just keep going on here, but I love this episode here that we're recording. do you find that, and I do this myself, because I'm like you, I have the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you figure out to the ending, you're like getting there and you've got your story. You're like, oh, but maybe I need to go back and sprinkle a little bit of suggestions back to where the reader's like, oh my gosh, he totally told us that. And we didn't even see it. Do you think of that kind of stuff? Like,
yes. And in fact, a little twist that is near the beginning of the third book, I set up the indications in the second. And what's fascinating is all the people that have read the second book, including, family members and stuff like that, not a single one asked about those couple little things that I had. And then the third, they're like, are you kidding me? So
when I read the second book, I'm going to be looking for that.
Okay.
I'm going like, hey, Michael, I read that and I totally know what's coming.
Right. That's great.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, this has been good. Yep. I am excited because I'm not gonna buy them all until April when the third one's out. Because I know if I read them, I'm gonna read them all through.
Oh yeah, I have to do the same thing. That's why I said it.
Yes. Yeah, well, but it may take you until April to get through the first and second one, Jamie.
Yep. If I do that, can I put off writing Age of the Sigil?
No.
All right, never mind then.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But so I'm listening to the Audible version of the first one, but that's just me hearing it. Then I go back. I want to read it. I'm visual, whatever.
Yeah.
But I have been super fascinated with just the way you're very similar to how I do things. So I feel like I can relate to you and how you put your stuff out there and how you create these worlds and how you want it to be like sci-fi but realistic.
Yes.
So if you want it relatable.
Yes.
So when I'm telling people, what type of book do I have? I'm like, sci-fi, supernatural, but like relatable reality.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No,
so real quick.
Yes.
One, and this is something that Jamie has asked before, but I'm going to ask. You have 30 seconds. We're on the street. Everybody's busy. Everybody's on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Give us 30 seconds of how you would sell your book to everyone. Because I'm going to probably make that a little snippet of a 30-second thing, and I'll probably put that out just as a segment. So if you can come up with a 30-second, here's my book, make me
Why
buy
would
it.
I want to buy it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So starting with the price of safety, it's set roughly 25 years in the future where technology has become so integrated in our lives that no crime goes unsolved anymore. When the main character, his 19-year-old daughter Raven, commits a crime. He covers it up to save her life, and that starts down this rabbit hole, this journey where he discovers that his own technology is being used against him and everyone. So then it's his choice to either protect his family or to help undo what was done.
Perfect. You did that way under 30 seconds.
Yep.
Nice.
Well, what's funny is, so I go to, like, I'll have a table at, like, Comic-Con or Fan Expo, not Comic-Con San Diego, but like Fan Expo. In fact, I'm doing one next month in the MegaCon in Orlando.
Oh.
So
that's only 6 hours from here.
And that's what the backdrop's going to be for, is to have that behind me, and that's the pitch. And kind of, Karisa, one thing you were saying earlier is some people, they listen and go, okay, and they walk away. Like, all right. Others get really fascinated. They end up buying, the books and all that stuff. So you have to have that little elevator pitch.
It's a TikTok society. You have to hook them in the first 3 to 10 seconds, and then go from there. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a very good episode again with Michael C. Bland as our guest author, and we have. I know it's my wheelhouse of something I'm going to read, and Jamie has ordered the books. I'm listening on Audible. But
thank you so much,
Michael,
both of you.
Can you tell us how people can find you?
Yes. My website, www.mcbland.com. Also, can find me Amazon, Barnes & Noble, BookPub, Kobo, Apple. The books are on Apple. Are on Audible for the first 2 books, and the third one will be coming out the same time that the third book comes out, which is April 8th.
That's my wedding anniversary.
Oh, fantastic.
Isn't it? I'm going to order the books on my anniversary.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And we get to go to our favorite Chinese place in Florida.
Oh, there
Jamie,
we go.
No.
Okay, I was
That's
gonna say, or you
fantastic.
could come to Chillicothe, but
Well,
Anyways,
thank you
I'm
so
so
much for
sorry.
having me on your show. This
Yes.
has been a blast. I've loved it.
And then whenever you do, when are you doing your thing in Orlando? Maybe put a shout out to people there.
Yes, I'm doing the MegaCon. I'm going to have a table there. That's February 6th to the 9th. And yes, I know that Sunday is Super Bowl, so I expect almost no one will be there that day. But definitely that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's at the Orlando Convention Center in Orlando.
I've went to many volleyball things there.
Nice.
It's a very large space. So make sure whenever you find out where you're at, you tell them what building you're in.
It's the main building with all of the other vendors. So it's all the vendors are in one spot, and then I think the breakouts are in a different area.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that it might be the north building, because there's a north building, a west building, a south building, and they're all huge. Yeah, whenever we have volleyball conventions, there's like 300 courts. It's insane. So
Which means I'll probably get lost. But,
hopefully they give you a map. So I'm just saying it's a very large conference center, but there's some really good food
oh, good. Oh, nice.
nearby, not inside.
Oh, not inside. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nearby.
I do the one in Denver, and yeah, they have some food inside, and it's horrible convention food. Never
wow.
eat it.
So the last time I was in Orlando, I was a glass shattering wizard for promotion for the seventh Harry Potter movie, but that's a story
that's
for
awesome.
another.
Well, now I want to hear that. You just throw that out there and you're going to say, see you later?
You have to
Really?
come back to another podcast.
Yeah, okay. We'll do. Absolutely. Oh, thank you for having me on. This has been great.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to have you back again in the future. We're going to talk about Audible if you're interested. Maybe you can help us kind of
Absolutely.
navigate for new authors wanting to do that, your
Yes.
pros, cons, and all that stuff. That'd be a great episode too.
Will do. Yeah. Happy
Yes. Maybe we'll do that after your book comes out. So then you can kind of give us a little like, hey, how is it doing? Blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
to. Yeah. I'd love to.
All
That'd be
right.
great.
So anybody that wants to follow the podcast, you can go to alwaysrightpodcast.com, or you can even email us if you have suggestions or a shout out, or you want us to forward an email to Michael at alwaysrightpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure you go to our website again to follow us on YouTube and subscribe. Go to Spotify, Apple Podcast. You can follow us on our socials. We don't have TikTok anymore. I deleted that one. But typically we do post on Threads and on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. So those are the 3 places you're typically going to find us. Any other ones you're just going to follow pointlessly. But anyways, as always, I'm author Karisa DeLay.
And I'm author Jaime Vendera, and we will see you in the next episode.
Until then, always right.